idea was this?
Hello everyone, my name is J-Bob, and welcome back to the thrilling conclusion of the Arthur trilogy.
Thrilling, he says. More like a giant cluster.
Language!
They're so excitable today. Strange, spring's long gone.
Having a fun little recap at the beginning of the movie is something that you typically see in kids' movies, so this fits. Plus, it's only been 5 years since the first one and a year since the second, so...
All aboard the Bug Express.
There's more action and suspense in this movie than the previous two installments. Maltazard is defeated, never to return again.
It's enough, I tell you.
We got a nice, normal, happily ever after ending, as it should be.
But what about the... Shh! We don't talk about the fourth movie. But it's, I said we don't talk about the fourth movie. The original author helped.
Like that's ever gonna happen. What a load of...
Where were we? You were destroying everything in your path as usual.
Once again, likely in an effort to cover everything, there's a lot of things to cover here. Since there's so much, I'll try to keep it down to about 5 points. Number 1. Selenia still isn't able to pull the sword from the stone. This is likely due to the fact that Selenia hasn't grown much over the last 10 months, and even though she's much more vocal in the third movie, it's clear she's back to her same hot-cold modality from the first movie. However, Arthur can pull the sword, but he hasn't grown much either. He was also anxiously awaiting his return to see the princess, but for some reason, he's more pure of heart, or something. Also, that light that erupts when he pulls it didn't happen in the first movie, but the king is still surprised.
I'm the great forest! I'll never get used to that.
So how often does this happen? Don't know and don't care. Number 2. The Bogo tribe apparently got more from their nature training, having lived that way their entire lives, so they're masters of disguise. As seen once Archibald realizes Maltazard is on the loose, and their response is to hide until he shows up, so they disappear while talking to him.
So that's what that feels like.
Later on, they appear from their hiding places and try to ambush Maltazard, but get manhandled very easily and are defunct for the rest of the movie. Like I said earlier, Arthur went through some of this training as well, so you could argue that he should have grown, but eating grass and getting peed on by a wolf didn't improve his skills. Perhaps combat training might have been a better thing to study? Oh well. Number 3. Arthur needs the growth potion, hidden in his grandfather's study, but Archibald ends up giving it to Maltazard so he can grow his army by pouring the whole bottle into the lake and summoning hundreds of underlings on giant mosquitoes. So Arthur needs to go to the beehive his father was determined to destroy in the second movie because the queen bee can make a similar potion, also known as the elixir of life, which is difficult to make, and they make a point of saying the fall-winter might be bad for the bees, but after a quick vote, they give it to him, and off he goes to save the day. However, while he's growing back to normal size, a significant amount of that same elixir falls out of the hive, an ant eats it, and then goes to gripe to Arthur's mom, Rose, about having spilled nail polish on its head. Rose apologizes, wipes paint on her own face, the ant accepts the apology, and then wanders off, never to be seen again. What was the point of discussing how scarce this potion was? There was a ton of it in the hive, a lot of it falls out, one ant gets it, but no other bug does? It would have been terrifying if that dragon bug from the beginning of the movie got it. Would have made the film a lot more interesting, though, wouldn't it? Also, what does this elixir do for the bees who have it every year? Do they grow to massive size and fly south for the winter? If so, how does anyone not notice this?
What? Did you just see that? See what? What? Those massive 5 to 6 foot large bees flying in the air. Oh, well that? Well, that's just old man Archibald's bees from their giant forest. It happens every year. Oh, really? Yeah, where have you been? Living under a rock? Apparently.
Number 4. There's a pathway under the house that leads to various rooms in the house where Minimoys can travel via bubble. Pipes are labeled with where they lead, which is far too small for human purposes, so it's clear that the Minimoys can and likely do use them as needed. This goes back to my point from the last review. Couldn't Arthur and Selenia work something out to get to know each other better, with Selenia traveling to the house by this route, and them using a mic and speaker setup to communicate with? Again, maybe that's discussed more in the books, but it seems to be only useful in this one specific scene. Number 5. Maltazard gets shrunk back to normal size at the end of the movie, and Arthur covers him with a cup, defeating him soundly. Right before the movie ends, though, we find that he's now stuck in the cupboard, where Daisy, Arthur's grandma, decides to torment him for the rest of his life by bringing him chocolate pie, since earlier, when he was going to take over the town, he committed her to bring a pie to him every Sunday, in exchange for not killing her and Archibald. Why can't Maltazard use that same corrosive power that he did from the first movie? Is it just not effective against paper or glass cups? Either way, he's reduced to pest/pet status, supposedly for the rest of his life, but he's the bad guy, so that's what he deserves, I guess.
Oh, that's not very nice. It's just a donkey.
There's just one ugly thing in this movie, and I'm not sure how much uglier you can get, honestly. M wanders through the town, finds a plastic surgeon, and demands to be restored to his old self, or the first poster he passed in town that caught his attention. A magician. He arrives to Archibald's house, and... oh my laws, that is horrifying. I mean, look at this! He looks like a mix of Marlon Brando and Leatherface, although his face moves better than Mr. Chainsaw Massacre, so yay? What's more ridiculous is that Archibald lets him in his house and offers him lemonade, because he recognizes the voice somehow, but just can't place the face, as if the face wasn't enough of a deterrent. I mean, I guess Archibald is used to tall people visiting, mainly the Bogo tribe, but Leatherface Houdini is just normal enough that he lets him in and mentions Arthur should be upstairs. Does he also leave his front door unlocked with a giant neon siren in the yard saying "Weirdos welcome"? Holy cow! Then, after a piece of glass gets stuck in his face, and he doesn't bleed, he proceeds to dramatically rip off his disguise and reveal what Archibald should have known all along. And they just stand there and watch, supposedly wrapped in horror or sick curiosity. It's like the villains from Power Rangers or Sailor Moon are just sitting there waiting patiently for him to transform. But in this case, the roles are reversed.
Well, what are you waiting for?
I don't know. Something amazing, I guess.
Me too, kid.
Yes, and a few times at that. First off, remember how they made a point of showing you how Darkos drowned in the first movie, and in the recap in this movie? Yeah, well, he's alive.
What? Wasn't he dead or something?
Apparently he's just been wandering around and recently decided to pay a visit to Arthur's house. After nearly getting crushed and Arthur and Betavish save him, he becomes their friend and becomes quite helpful in defeating M towards the end of the movie.
Most impressive.
Next, remember how Maltazard got the potion from Archibald earlier and dumped it in the entire lake to raise his whole army? Yeah, well, Archibald has more potions and dunks Darkos into the whole vial, since apparently he's impervious to drowning and grows to full size. If it took the whole potion to grow Maltazard's army to full size, what would have happened if Darkos had managed to absorb more of the potion than he did to grow to his full size? That would have been hilarious to turn this movie into, from a kid's movie to a kaiju type movie. Oh my word. Darkos would have just fumbled over, crushed the town, and probably gone on to fight Godzilla. It would have been a lot more devastating if Maltazard figured out how to do this. He wouldn't have even needed to raise his whole army. He could have just stopped the whole town himself. But then, Darkos could have found the potion and tried to fight him off, instead of throwing Godzilla into the mix.
Hold on. This whole operation was your idea.
Lastly, the army shows up, barreling through the theater and just shooting bugs out of the sky like it's another day at the office. Quick question. Who called the army? Was it the sheriff? Was it the deputy? Or was it that weird guy that noticed the mosquitoes in the sky and no one else did? How did no one else notice that?
I told you.
Then, during the aftermath, Arthur hides Darkos in an antique shop of some sort and dresses him up like Samurai Darth Vader, complete with Imperial March theme music. Arthur takes off to find his grandpa, and a reporter just decides to go in there, supposedly because he saw Arthur leave, finds Darth Darkos, and asks him if he knows the devil, or Maltazard, because that's what Armand called him, and that spread all the way back to this guy. And Darkos responds, "He's my father," and the reporter proceeds to geek out. Not really sure why that's in the movie to begin with, maybe just for a quick laugh, but are we supposed to just believe that maybe this guy was George Lucas and this is where his inspiration for Star Wars came from?
Well, the crystal ball says that would be very boring. But it could be fun, though.
There's a handful of OMGs, and that's basically it.
Could be worse. How?
Sex? Thankfully, no. But there are a couple of scenes where Arthur and Selenia fall on top of each other and awkwardly excuse it by saying, "We don't have time for this right now." That probably makes for some really awkward conversations in the movie theater with parents and their kids.
What did they mean they don't have time for that? What are they going to wrestle? Yes, that's exactly what they're going to do. They're going to wrestle. There's no time for that now, is there? They've got to go save the world, right?
A few years later.
That wasn't wrestling.
Good will triumph over evil, and your grandma will get a weird / incredibly evil pet?
Correct!
Drum roll, please. That's your drum roll.
On a scale of 1 to 5 stars, 1 star once again. First off, there's so many loose ends. Whatever happened to the giant ant? What will become of Darth Darkos? Will he just keep doing weird end credit gigs? What will become of Maltazard? He's just going to live on a plate under glass, getting slices of pie until he dies? Will the mechanic return the checks he stole from Armand? Or did Armand even legitimately pay him for the first round of repairs on his car? Will Arthur abandon his normal life, go live with the Minimoys, and officially make Selenia his queen?
I don't know. Hey, now don't start that again.
In a weird turn of events, Darkos survived. Again, that turned out to be helpful, but how did he survive?
Well, you got me. By all accounts, it doesn't make sense.
Guess I'll have to keep my word and read the books if I want to figure out what actually happened and why he came back. But for now, there's no answer, and the trilogy's over, so yay. Lastly, what was the point of all that training Arthur did in the second movie? Will we ever find out? I guess not, because the last movie is that weird horror slasher film that I still have zero interest in watching. Well, I guess that's all. See you next time.